Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining the Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities informational webinar, FPCTP Annual Student and Program Reports. My name is Drew Andrews. I am the Assistant Director and Technical Assistance Coordinator at the Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities. Our presenter today is Dr. Janice Seabrooks Blackmore, the Executive Director and Professor at the Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities at the University of Central Florida. And this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on our website under the Events tab for your review at a later date or to share with someone who is unable to attend today. The PowerPoint and other handouts can be downloaded from the chat window, which can be accessed by clicking the chat icon. And if you aren't familiar with Zoom, just take your cursor and move to the bottom of the window, and a row of cursors will appear and icons, and you'll see a speech bubble that says chat. And if you click that, a chat window will open over to the right, and someone's going to post the PowerPoint. I see there's one of the student annual student report documents is also going to be recorded, and then at the end we will be having an evaluation, and we would appreciate you completing that evaluation for us. If you have difficulty hearing, the presentation has phone numbers that you can call in, and we'll be posting those in the chat window also. So at this time, I'm going to turn the webinar over to Dr. Seabrooks Blackmore.
Again, greetings everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This webinar is for all the approved FPCTPs. So only the approved FPCTPs are in this current webinar, although it will be posted. So we will address the annual reporting format and using the documents that have been posted in the chat, as well as the documents that you received via email. You can always find them on our website. So we have them in several places, and we certainly are looking forward to seeing everybody soon. So ask questions if it's not clear. I will not go over each and every form, but I will cover some key areas. And Drew will back me up if I forget anything, because that's very highly likely. I do want to say that in the last 2 days, my internet connection has been participating really funkily. I know no one knows what that's like, I'm sure, but it did not want to act right this morning, and certainly didn't act right yesterday. So Drew is the backup host, or am I Drew or somebody else, in the event we get disconnected, and I hope that isn't the case.
Right.
But so do I have the ability to share the screen, Drew?
Yes.
Okay, so let me get that together. Put it. Now on my screen, that looks like a red screen with a sand dune, but I know it doesn't look like that for you guys, does it?
No.
Okay, good, because I think my monitor is on the blink. Okay, does the PowerPoint show up?
Yes.
Okay, and I'll stop my video here, but keep going. So as Drew said, this is our annual report, annual student and program reports. And we would like to say that, first of all, our goal was for us to be able to use our Salesforce portal, and we are not in that role yet, and we want to promise, but we will not, because we never know what companies will do. But we hope that the information that you're doing in this format this time will be the last time. But keep your fingers crossed for us so that that can be absolutely true. For our agenda today is pretty short, and it's just reviewing all of the reporting elements that we have, although not each and every specific area. but reporting the elements that are specified in the FPCTP Act. So your reporting is information that the center is responsible for collecting to report back to the state, our Senate Appropriations Committee, the um, commissioner, board of governors, a whole slew of people who oversee education in our state. And so it becomes detailed because they certainly want to know what our public funds are doing, and we are happy to report that. And so that is, we'll start off by looking at what those areas are. The reporting timeline isn't a difficult one because we have just a few dates to remember, but I can imagine it gets pretty confusing when you have several reports that are due on different dates. So in this case, we're talking about your program and we're talking about the students. And then we'll look at some examples if you haven't had a chance to see them during our many presentations or gone over them on our website or scoured through our annual report. I'll share what some of that data ends up looking like and that the public has access to. And so each year we try to make it a better presentation, more clarification of what we're doing because we like for the programs to continue to get the support. So first of all, the report is due August 1st. And in the legislature, it emphasizes that at minimum. Now, here's some of the performance indicators that are listed in the law, but we know from looking at your applications that many of you identify other performance indicators, and that's fine, which is that last bullet. Not only do you present other information, but we also request other than what's just listed here. So at minimum, the law specifies that these things must be reported in order for you to meet the requirements to continue your program and receive support. And one of the requirements of us. So we may bug you, and some of you are having fun with how we are reaching out to you now through our Salesforce with reminders of when things are due. And so those days are set, and maybe your mailbox get full, but it certainly want to make sure that we keep on target with our accountability and what is required of us. But as we look at that first bullet, efforts to recruit students in the FPCTP and the number of students enrolled in the program is one. We definitely want to know, how are you reaching out to reach, as many of you've reported, and as we know, that's reported, the number of students with intellectual disabilities across the state who are eligible to attend a post-secondary institution. How are you reaching out to those individuals to actually enter your programs? And one of the things that's new and exciting to us at the center, many of you know that we have a new program coordinator, a program manager, outreach coordinator, Iris Neal, who will be working closely with you as well to be thinking about recruitment and outreach to further increase the number of students who are enrolled in our current programs across the state. Additionally, we have to report the efforts to retain students. So we get the students, but what are the efforts to retain the students in the FPCTP and the retention rate once you get them in your programs? How do they stay? What are you doing to make sure that they stay? And as we read through your programs and previous reports, there are some remarkable feats you go through to make sure students are successful. And so that's information that we report to the state. Completion rate of students and related courses. How well, everyone wants to know, even though you have programs, are students staying? And if they are staying, are they completing? And if they are completing, what type of courses are they taking? What are they doing? And so your annual reports ask you to list that out, particularly per student, to find out what they're doing, what courses they are, how well are they passing. And then, of course, if we see on the this act as being an impetus in helping us increase the number of students with intellectual disabilities access post-secondary education and have an inclusive experiential um, experiences in post-secondary ed and exit with a meaningful credential. They want to know, how successful are your programs? And following from the first year that they graduate through the 5th year after completion. So what is that transition like? Where are they employed? Number one, what kind of pay are they receiving? And what kind of salary levels, benefits, and other things that the access, we need to follow what our students are doing to see what all of these evidence-based and promising practices we're implementing, are they having an impact on the society and more importantly on the individuals and their families. And then, as I said, then other performance indicators. Some of you look at number of peer mentors, you look at, in addition to us wanting to know their satisfactory academic progress, you have how long individuals were on jobs, length of time, number of internships they've had. Each institution has other indicators that you're interested in, and so does the center. So these are the basic elements that the FPCTP says we must report on. Now you'll have several templates within each one of your reporting documents. And for completing the program templates, there are a number that we're going to look at, some examples of staffing information, how much time each staffing member works with students, types of credentials you have, and so forth. But when we look at program information in particular, if you did a report last year, then you are able to copy and paste some of that information from your report last year. So that's helpful, where you don't have to put in initial information. So if you, again, has some of that information and you want to copy and paste, one of the things we say in the document is to please look at it, even though you're editing it, and I'm sorry, even though you're copying it and pasting, we want to make sure that you edit it for accuracy, because that's a very easy thing to mess up if you're not looking at that. Particularly if there's no change and you make an assumption that you copied and pasted correctly, we just ask that you please make sure that you double check everything. As with the previous reporting, the files are Word files, but they're fillable files. So there'll be drop-down menus that are in the files that you can take a look at, and we'll look at an example or two, and then look at what that end up resulting in. But you do have fillable files, which is great. In some of the situations, particularly with the staffing entries, if there's more than 10, you will need to contact FCSUA in order for us to format the document where we can add more than what is currently in the document. So we only have 10 slots in some cases, and if we need to add more, then we will. That'll be something that you definitely want to reach out to us soon about. Here's one of the fillable documents. And the nice thing about it is you don't have to go look for our telephone numbers right there on item number 10, just reminding you, excuse me, if for any reason you have more than 10 staff, that let us know and we will help format the document to extend it for you. But you notice in here, there's a lot of information. This table represents all of the questions that precede number 10, which is asking for each staff member. So you have initials. We don't want their names. We want their initials for each staff member and what their FTE is with our students, as well as what their FTE is at the institution, if any. And then looking at the overall amount of time that our students require from your program staff depending on the number of students that you have in your program. So you do have quite a few rows to complete for each staff member. And for those of you who have no staff changes, that'll be easy to copy and paste. For others, you'll be updating that and entering that. And maybe for some, the FTE or the amount of hours may have changed. Again, this is just one of the forms for staffing. Take a swig of water. And this is what it will look like. The data that you share with us, this is what it will end up looking like, sharing a lot of powerful information about how much time it requires based on the number of staff members and the number of students, as well as what the number of hours individuals work. This gives us a lot of information typically of how much time we are spending with each student based on that institution, each student, each week. And it's a good arguing point for many of you. We know that for those of you who've seen these reports before, we know that on average, we're looking at about 0.21 or 25% of your time is really in that last column, the amount of time we might spend per FTE per student. And so many people would depending on the number again, and the number of students and number of staff members, in many cases, people would think there would be a whole lot more time, but you all have found awesome ways to integrate students and take advantage of services across each institution that clearly informs the public about how this can be done. And each year that will change, but this is what we had last year. Can everybody see that okay? It's a little small.
Janice, we have a question.
Okay.
Okay, the question is, when making the list of individuals that are working with the program, should only FTE that is paid by the FCSUA grant, or include folks that are paid from any source that are working with students in the FPCTP?
Excellent question. That is actually one of the questions in the report, because it'll ask you about, sorry if you hear me shifting papers, I'm looking through where that is. In the report, it actually asks you that question about how much are funding, where's the funding coming from for each one of the staff members? If it's all FPCTP funding with the grant, or is it what other sources? So we do ask that question where you enter it. It's just not on that particular page that you've been asked, but it is on another one.
So on this form that we just were looking at, you would be including folks that work with students in the FPCTP that may be paid from the FPCTP grant or may be funded from other funding lines.
Yes, and the next item on, as you look at it, when you look at your document, page 5, number 11, actually ask you about how much is funded by the FPCTP grant and how much is funded from the IHE, your institution, or another source. So it is the very next question after question 10 in the template, okay? And it ended up looking like that. So you will be reporting about actually other funding sources. But again, this is an example of how we collect your data and present it to the public. Another area to cover, which is a big area that we look at, again, it's not that it would be everything in the report that we're going over, but this one is a big one because it takes a little time to think about your credentials and walk through the length, describing it, and many of you who have been doing your renewals and or recently been approved, put this information in Salesforce. And this is one of the things that we desire when our Salesforce portal is working at the level that we like, that would get pulled, and it would not be something that you would have to repeat over and over. Right now we're having to do that, but in this, identifying your credentials are extremely important. And we have in our annual report, which we'll look at in a minute, just an example of how this data is reported. A couple of things that we know are missing, that is captured in the Salesforce portal, and that we will be reaching out to each one of you at a later time than today or this month, to get what you've already entered in the portal, and that is your concentrations and tracks and your micro credentials and badges. So you'll notice from this view that neither of those are included on this form for you reporting. And what we notice on the, when we look at what that looks like in our annual report, many of you tried, and this is just one example, wanted to capture everything. So you, in some cases, you clarified for us what the main credential was and the pathways, concentrations or tracks that students could go, in addition to what are the certificates, what are other credentials that students could actually earn in addition to the overall endorsement that you have in your program. So this information will look slightly different next when we report this year, because we do want to capture it. Our goal is to capture it in a cleaner way to connect with the concentrations tracks and also include the micro credentials and the badges. However, what you will be reporting on the forms at this time will be that, and we'll follow up with you later to kind of go through those. Which is what I just said. We will follow up later, and some of the additional credentials will come through. Now, with the student information, which is next, again, it can be copied and pasted as well. If you did a report last year, for those of you, this will be your first time. Next year, hopefully we'll be pulling data, but you won't have that opportunity. But for those of you who do, and if those of you who had a previous report and desire to have assistance from FCSUA, please let us know by May 29th. You don't have to wait until May 29th. If you already know that, you can let us know. We had just a couple of institutions who requested our assistance last year. Everyone else, and in previous years, everyone else were pretty good with what they needed to do. But we ask that you kind of help us out, help you if that's something you definitely need. The student information form is also a Word fillable file. Again, so you'll have drop-down menus in which you can enter your data in that file, save it. And with both the student information and the program information, you will, once you've completed that data, you will forward that information on to FCSUA's email, and fcsua@ucf.edu. You will share that with us once you have completed all of your information. Again, part of the legislation for student information asks that you report on students as they exit the program, no matter how they exited the program, which is a question we ask. We're hoping they exit as completers, but we know typical students exit all programs in different ways. So we want to know 1 year to 5 years out, how are they doing? And one of the things that this certainly has probably alerted all of you is, man, if we don't have an evaluation tool or some kind of follow-up measure, device, then we need to make sure we find a way to collect data, because several of you last year had completers, and I know you were already poised for collecting that data, but you probably are also looking at how can we refine what we collect based on our performance indicators and what we want to know as our bragging rights and share with others. Because as we look into sustainability measures, we want to make sure that whomever our funders are, that they know that we have a successful program that's integrated within our institution. So you will collect that exit data over a 5-year period. We're required by law to do that, and you certainly can go beyond that because we hope to see your programs 10 or 15 years from now. So that would be certainly awesome. Again, in the annual report, and what I'll share are just a few of the slides that are kind of jog your memory about what what your data tells us about the students. So last year, we had almost close to even number of males and females. Of course, we look at several demographics to kind of find out where our students, with their ethnic background, racial background. We want to know where they live, have lived, what type of work experience they've had prior to, how did they exit high school. You know, there's a long list of getting data about what's happening with our students. And so we are getting your data and changing that data. One of the types of data that we like is really seeing that consistency across your programs about what students say they want to do or say that they're interested in, and then based on the clusters, the career clusters that you'll find on our DOE website, but they say, and maybe they have no idea what we're talking about, but they give us an idea of what they think they might be interested in. And the nice thing is our programs pretty much mirror what they want. So the previous slide showed what they were interested in prior to coming in. And then our current slide shows what they actually enter once they get enrolled in the program. So they're pretty darn close in looking at that. And with the new programs that are applying and with the current programs going through renewal and expanding their programs, I am so excited to look at what the areas will look like in our next year's annual report, because it's pretty positive that you're listening to the students and really thinking about what it is that you can offer. We had over 130-odd students last year with our final reporting. You know, we need many more students. So we know that we have new programs. So we are excited too about the numbers that we're actually seeing that will be increased over time. This is an example of kind of information that we're going to ask when they have completed the program. So again, you are collecting that data. So we're asking you and thinking about your accountability, how you want to make sure your audit trail is taken care of, noting where students are when they leave your program, who will be the contact people, which we ask in the report, so that we can think about the integrity of the data as it's reported from a 1 to 5 year span. But important, many of you are changing that industry certification. You're looking at your credentials and identifying more opportunities for students to exit with credentials that are industry certified, which increases their employability opportunities. But you're looking also at competitive employment, where students have an opportunity to get full benefits, have promotions, vacations. So that's pretty important. So this is what your information looks like to the public. And so again, if you haven't seen that, you can have plenty of time to go through our annual reports. And we have a full list of every annual report that has been completed since 2016. So you have a lot to be proud of, particularly those who have been with us from the beginning. You have a lot to be proud of, to think about from where we've come and where we're going now. We want to continue documenting that. The link in the PowerPoint goes directly to the About Us page. Let's see what happens when I do that. Okay. I know I have to minimize. And I know that's a strange thing to all of you, right? You have no idea what that page looks like, but I'm going to pull it up anyway. And in this page, you will scroll down to the bottom and you see every annual report we have. So you can download these documents, or when you're bored and you want something to read and you're excited and you want something to read, it goes on both ends. Go to the annual reports if you haven't already done that, and see how over time actually things have changed on what we're reporting and how we are informing the public about what we're doing. So it's here for everyone to see and actually revel in. So we're pretty proud about that.
Janice, if you don't mind me adding, I just want to share with everyone that, as you said, the reporting requirements for the center are very extensive, and all of that data is included in those annual reports. And so it really is very interesting. I find it very interesting because it's broken down by different programs. So looking at how, you can look at university programs or state college programs or career tech programs, and looking at what the staffing looks like. And so it's real for folks that are just starting, or folks that are expanding, or folks that are just wondering, I wonder what other folks are doing. There's lots and lots of great data there to look at.
Exactly. I was going to say, you can compare and think about as you revisit, particularly as we're getting ready for the mid-year, thinking about what program goes, how we might want to redirect what we're doing, and be a little more comparable to our sister or brother institutions. But we look at it as great bragging rights, and we're proud of all of the work that everyone does, and happy to support, and are always here to support your efforts in any way. So we can look at those reports and always find something to compare and brag about and share in your own presentations.
And if you don't mind, I'll just simply share a couple of other questions that have come in the chat box during the presentation. And one of those was a 1.0 FTE, is that always 40 hours? And I responded back that in most cases it is, but not all cases, because many of the career technical centers that are part of school districts, and for many school districts, the hours of their employees that are working in those programs are sometimes 37, sometimes 37.5. So it can vary. So it's not always that one FTE is 40, but in most cases it is. And then another question that we had, looking at the student report, when we list the courses taken, it asks for clock hours of each course. Can you please define that?
Yeah, the clock hours, that would probably be our college and career tech centers who would probably answer that, respond to that, more so than it would be state colleges and the universities. So that's for our CTE programs. We sometimes, when we ask, how long is your program? Most often their response is related to clock hours, not semesters or terms, but it's more related to clock hours. Am I right, Vivian? Is Vivian on?
I don't think Vivian's with us today.
Okay. Anybody on the in CTE?
And anyone can unmute yourself by just simply moving your cursor, and down at the bottom of your window, to the left corner, there's a microphone, and you can either mute yourself or unmute yourself if you would like to respond.
Yes. This is Kelly Southmaid. So if we're a university, then we can just leave the clock hours column blank for those courses?
Yes, you're going to put,
Okay.
yeah, you're going to put.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But Christy and Jen are on.
Hi,
Yeah,
it's Christy from Broward County Public Schools.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Yes, so the answer for the technical schools is most of our programs are by clock hours. So for example, our culinary program is a total of 1,200 hours divided into 4 courses, and each course is 300 hours.
Thank you. One of the things that is nice about as you're completed, and some of you have the experience, and that is as we get your reports in, we definitely follow up to make sure that we understand what you're writing and or clarification on a question if there was anything that's unclear. So we do make sure we follow up, and that will be what we would do this year as well as we go through your data to make sure that we are representing it correctly. Okay. Any other questions?
Hi, Janice. This is Amanda from TCC. I had a follow-up question about the staffing individuals that we report on.
Yes.
So we have advisors, career center staff who do their job, and they do it for our students as well. So they're serving our students in their program, but that's still within their job.
Right.
On this report or not?
You are breaking up a little bit. You were asking, do you report on them or not? So,
Right, like the staff.
If they are FPCTP staff, if they're working with our students as FPCTP staff, yes. We do have information that we ask about advising in the report, but we're really looking for what staffing components that FPCTP is covering and supporting. And if you have any external providers that are not part, we ask about them as well. People who are outside of the institution who provide support. But I do understand what you mean about, let's say if it's the counseling center or something like that. Are they an FPCP staff member or are they doing their work? They're pretty much doing their work. They're not supported by you in any way.
Correct.
Okay, so that would not be included.
Okay, and then for our peer mentors, we consider them staff, but they are still to be not included on the staff chart.
And they have their own. We have a section for peer mentors separately that is reported in the program information as well. So you will report on them, just not with the staffing information. Cool.
I have another question.
What?
About the student reports.
Okay.
So when they once they graduate, you don't report on like their employment until a year later.
Well, we do ask, did they exit the program during the year that you're reporting? And then we ask information about that. So what we're required to do is make sure it is at least 1 year after they have left. But yes, you can talk about who exited. We have a section where we talk about who exited the program during the year that you are reporting and whether they were in a job, a competitive job, what kind of job. So we still ask about that if they exited during the year in which you're completing the report.
So
And
it says like their plans. So what are these students' plans for 12 months following? So it's not necessarily reporting that they have a job right then, but their plans
Right.
are for a job.
what are they thinking about? And you're looking at page 14, number 4. What are whatever plans? Yes, so again, that's helping you think about, and you would know as they're getting close to exiting the program, whether or not they're going to go to get in another post-secondary program, they're going to work, what type of work. You should have some kind of idea of what they want to do once they exit or completing your program. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, cool. Other questions? Okay, well, as
While
always,
while you're thinking of those, any other questions, I want to remind everyone that in the chat box, there is an evaluation of today's webinar, and we would greatly appreciate you completing that evaluation to let us know how we can make future webinars better. And we appreciate you taking the time to join us. And again, the chat box is available if you have a question, or you can unmute yourself and ask the question. And I also want to remind folks that this webinar will be posted on our website probably by lunchtime tomorrow, along with all of the documents.
Can I ask an unrelated question?
sure.
The second one. I don't know if it's included in the report, but is there a consensus just to hear from you guys about like fall semester stuff with different colleges or CTPs?
As far as whether we be in a stay-at-home mode, or we know that we're reporting back June 1st. We'll phase in June 1st. Our students are still off campus all summer. So as far as the students for UCF, they're still off campus, but we will start phasing on. And I don't know what's the case for every institution, but that's all that we know at this institution and haven't heard anything else further.
This
Have
is,
not. Okay, I'm sorry.
this,
Go ahead,
this is
Nicole.
Nicole from FIU. I can share what we are doing.
Mhm.
We are all online for the summer. The university is looking at a small percentage of classes being face-to-face. That is one scenario. And if that is the case, obviously only a certain number of students and certain types of classes will be online. And students who do come to campus will be asked to leave campus after class, so that there is a very small footprint of students and faculty on campus. I could tell you that the department under which the education program is located will not be back on campus for the fall, and that department will be in a different phase of coming back onto campus.
Okay.
Therefore, we have tentatively thought about bringing our students back one class face-to-face, if they are allowed by the university, and one class online. Most of our supports will continue online because the policy of the university is that after a student finishes a class, they must leave campus because they're trying to reduce the amount of exposure and time on campus. So with that, that is the plan that we have. We're waiting for the final word from the leadership before we either solidify that plan or make changes as the university puts out a new plan. We've already spoken to our families, and we are in the process. Most families are not comfortable returning to class because our students are considered, most of them, high risk. So we have offered them the opportunity of continuing the program online. We are looking at work-based learning and different opportunities that we have. There will be opportunities on campus for some work-based learning, but we will have to manage that with mask, as you know, social distancing, all the other guidelines that goes along with that. We are looking at how we could have our students back. And actually today I had a call with one of our internship providers about how they manage that, a very large hospital here. So there's already planning underfoot. We do have a couple of parents who have asked for leave of absences because their son or daughter is not doing well in an online fashion and they need more of a face-to-face engaged fashion, which we understand. Unfortunately, the struggle we have is that we know that COVID is going to be around for some time, for some years, and there will be ebbs and flows of peaks and lows in period. So we are trying to establish a process. We are going to follow the university guidelines on this in terms of leave of absences. Since Embrace does not have its own policy, we'll be following the university's guidelines and granting some leave of absences, but not all, because it just doesn't work to grant a 2-year leave of absence or a 1-year leave of absence. So we are trying to be flexible with families, at the same time maintaining the integrity and following the policies of the university.
Sure.
And if you don't know, Nicole has been at our institutes, but FIU is our newest baby, so we're happy to have you on. And we have a few more babies in the hopper that are coming, so we hope to get those done in the next 6 weeks. So thank you. Thank you.
I have a question regarding, so we have at FIU, we have faculty mentors who serve like in an academic advisement capacity. They're not staff. We give them stipends. How would we include that as part of the report?
But Maite, I want to clarify. They are not advising on classes the way an advisor advises. They are helping the student work on a goal that is a part of the student's both employment, but there are other goals that the students have in terms of living independently, employment, education, even personal goals of cooking and that sort of stuff. So they are choosing a goal with the student and working with the student every week on that goal. So it's a little different than advising.
And do you pronounce your name Maite?
Maite.
Maite. And so if they're supported by FPCTP funding in any way, that's what we're interested in. If they're outside of your university and the external support, then we also ask about that. But if the funding source, if they're supporting our program, and any of the funding is coming from us, that's one of the areas that you would report on. So you might want to look at that. You guys can talk through that.
Okay.
Let me talk through that with you.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. How many students do you all have coming on board?
So we have pushed back our admission from the fall to the spring because we really do want students in a face-to-face setting, and we couldn't guarantee that for the fall. So we have 16 coming on in the spring, maybe 17.
Okay. Cool.
Do we have any other questions, anyone?
Well, I brought up the COVID thing because I'm thinking it's going to affect our reporting with retention, with enrollment. So I just wanted to hear both what people are doing.
Yeah.
Possible to maybe have like another state Zoom about this, because I think it's, concerning, and maybe we can support each other with what other programs are doing or thinking about. Helpful.
And I think it'll be an opportunity in our institute where we'll be meeting and talking across programs as well, that we definitely want to kind of see where we're going, because we're looking at our plans. And right now, as we're thinking about the institute for the fall, we just learned today that we can't explore options until, of course, the travel ban is lifted completely. So we're doing our trial run now, ladies and gentlemen. And it's going to be even bigger in the fall, it seems. So we may be virtual in the fall as well. So that's a question we have too, Amanda, as we think about it. But I'm sure this is one that will come up during our type alike meetings that we have scheduled for the Institute as well. And if we need to offer additional Zoom, we certainly will cover it, because we never cover everything at one time anyway. So I think it's a valued concerned, and we are all sitting on our edge of our seats trying to figure out what will happen. And of course, it will impact enrollment, as they've said, for all of the institutions across the country. Enrollment is impacted. So,
I have a question for a couple of our colleagues. Nicole,
Mhm.
I understood you to say that you are looking at your next admissions about 15 or 16, and that's probably in January. Is that what I heard?
Yes, we were pushing to, we normally bring people on in the fall. We have one admission time. Michael, we do our own evaluation, psychological evaluation, and we couldn't finish those processes because of COVID. And in fact, now we're going to have to change some of the admission processes because of COVID.
We
But
didn't do your psych eval of me. It would take you months. Let me ask you about your continuing students. How many students do you think you will be continuing with in fall? Not your new guys, but your.
So we'll continue with everybody. We're graduating 5, and Crystal has the numbers. I don't remember the exact numbers. Crystal, how many?
We're graduating 5, so we'll have 25 that will continue with us in the fall.
Okay.
And aiming to have 15 or 16 new ones in the spring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amanda, I have the same question for you, if you don't mind. Have you figured out if you're going to admit for fall, or have you thought about pushing that back to spring?
I have not thought that. We have 4 returning students, and then we would have, I think, 8 or 9 openings for new students. So I think it's hard to come into such a uncertain platform. So definitely have a lot of uncertainty and questions.
mm-hmm.
Our college hasn't announced yet what fall will look like. So
Okay.
I don't know if you all have seen, but for those of you in the SUS, the Board of Governors has announced that we're back on track in fall.
Mm-hmm.
They've also announced that they don't know what the hell that means. So
Right. Just come back.
I agree, Michael. When I saw that, I was quite shocked. And then when I got additional information, it really doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, when you read the bottom paragraph, it says nothing.
Yeah, so that's why we're stuck, and the university requires that I give a plan, right? I submit a plan of how we will continue providing services or educational opportunities. Our biggest concern is that our students are very high risk because of their disability. Mm-hmm. And I actually sent a couple of emails today up to the provost and to the vice provost of student affairs, because I know that they are looking at high risk populations and bringing them in separately in a different phase. They will not be in phase 1. So I am sort of trying to figure out, well, does that mean our program, right? And so it's the same thing they're doing for staff in terms of high risk versus a typical somebody who's not in a high risk category, right? And so they are beginning to have those conversations. And part of the issue also is they have to implement a contact tracing process on campus. And that's part of what they're building right now. So that's why we have to move forward with enrolling in fall, but we really don't know what that's going to look like.
Has there been any discussion at any of your programs, among your programs, about having a contact tracing credential or program for our guys that we might expose, that we might be able to add as part of the curriculum at our institutions?
I just got off a call this morning about that. So John Hopkins has a contact tracing credential. I'm sure you've taken a look at it. It's quite comprehensive. FIU has digital credentials. We are looking at putting that together for certain people with, we're looking at putting that together in general. And then on top of that, looking at what segment of our students can earn that credential, right? So I will be quite honest and say not every of the 20 students in our program right now could earn that, but I think we have 4 or 5 who I think can be pretty good at that. In fact, we were talking about that earlier last week, right? Honestly, I don't know where that will go, because there is a challenge when you do contact tracing in terms of how you engage the student or the person to be able to get that information.
Yeah.
And I think the university is going to want to roll it out with typical students from STEMPL, public health, first before they engage us, quite frankly.
The advantage of some of us looking at something like that is that it's a script. There's very little last minute decision making, conditional decision making. When you look at the contact tracing curriculum, the protocols for that,
Absolutely.
whether it's coming out of disaster relief or public health or criminology, it's almost always the same, that it's follow the script.
Right.
Yeah, it's very prescriptive, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But there are some decision trees in there that I know that some of our students may not be able to handle.
Agreed.
But you're absolutely correct. Yes.
Thank you.
I could tell you one thing that we are doing is we are part of the team FIU Embrace that is making face shields for first responders, group homes, home health care, all of that. We are looking at we have multiple sites on campus, but now it's going to be outfitted by our students for the cleaning and all of that. And it would be a work-based learning opportunity. There are other 3D things, prototypes that we're looking at that we'll be able to use post-COVID and within the new COVID arena that we will be doing. And in fact, one of the things I was doing was speaking with a foundation to get dollars to support that initiative for our students. So I think that we're trying different ways to show that our students, all of our students, for the colleagues that's on here, that we can be on the front line supporting the community, and even a person with disability can give back in some way and use it as part of our program. So we've had a lot of support to do that. And in fact, that's where Crystal is. She's at the 3D printing today. So we are trying to do things like that.
That's awesome. Thank you. Good conversation. I'm sure that will continue. Well, we look forward to receiving your reports. And I have a tickle in my throat. So Drew, you want to finish?
Yes. Thank you all for joining us today. Again, you'll be receiving an email tomorrow reminding you to complete the evaluation, as well as a copy of the handouts and the PowerPoint slide from today. And we hope that we will be seeing all of you online at our mid-year check and connect. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to us at any of our email addresses or our phone numbers that we have at the university that are at the bottom of our email. Those will go directly to our computers. So again, thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Great discussion, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, guys. Stay safe.